Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you've ever felt totally overwhelmed by terms like the semantic web or linked data, don't worry, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to completely demystify ontologies. Together, we're going to build a fully functioning knowledge graph from absolute scratch. And honestly, the best part, we're doing it all using a visual tool called Protégé, which means we won't have to write a single line of raw web ontology language, or OWL code. Think of this process like building a house. First, we'll ask, what is an ontology? Then, we'll lay the class foundation, define the rules and relationships, populate it with real data, and finally, test it all with the reasoner.
Okay, part one. What is an ontology? Let's talk about formal knowledge models.
So, have you ever actually wondered how a computer understands what things mean? Like going beyond just hoarding isolated records in a database. Think about a regular spreadsheet. It holds data, sure, but it doesn't intuitively know that the author listed in column A actually wrote the book in column B. To the computer, it's literally just text. We need a way to teach the computer the actual meaning behind that text. And that is exactly where an ontology comes into play. It's basically a formal representation of knowledge for a specific domain. That could be global healthcare, finance, or for our project today, library management. Instead of just dumping data into separate buckets, an ontology explicitly defines what things are and exactly how they interact with each other. Moving on to part two, laying the class foundation, where we build the hierarchy. We're going to use Protégé for this, which is pretty much the go-to tool for the job. Setting it up is super quick. You just launch the app, hit File, and select New Ontology. Now here's the important part. You need to enter a unique ontology IRI. That stands for Internationalized Resource Identifier. Basically, think of it as your ontology's own unique global address on the web. Hit Continue, and you've got a blank canvas. Next up, we hop into the Classes tab. The big thing to note here is that Protégé starts you off with a default root class called OWLthing. Literally everything you create lives under this umbrella. From there, we start drafting our main blueprints. We add broad classes like book, person, member, and library. But we take it a step further and branch out into specific subclasses. So under book, we might add printed book and ebook. Under member, we drop in student member. By doing this, we're basically telling the computer, hey, every student member is fundamentally a member, and every member is fundamentally a person. Make sense? All right, part three, defining rules and relationships using domains and ranges. We build these connections using what are called object properties. These basically hook one individual concept to another. But, we can't just let things connect willy-nilly. We need some ground rules. So we set up domains, which is where the relationship starts, and ranges, which is where it lands. Take the borrows property, for example. We set the domain to member and the range to book. This completely guarantees that the one doing the borrowing is a member, and the thing being borrowed is definitely a book. It builds this really rigid logical structure for the computer to rely on. Next, we flip over to the Data Properties tab. Now, instead of connecting concepts to other concepts, data properties connect concepts to actual literal values, and we strictly define what type of data to expect using standard XML schema. So the property has title for a book gets a range of a text string. That has publication year property. That gets an integer. This is what keeps our data incredibly clean and perfectly standardized. Which brings us to part four, populating with real data by creating individuals. Now we jump into the Individuals tab. Individuals are just specific, real-world instances of those classes we just built. Instead of talking about the abstract idea of a printed book, we create an actual individual named CleanCode. Instead of just author, we make RobertMartin. We add Alice as our student member and Sarah as the librarian. We're quite literally breathing life into our blueprint here. And here is where the magic actually happens. We take those object properties we just defined and use them to wire these individuals together. We pull up Alice's profile and add a quick assertion, Alice borrows CleanCode. Boom! We've just turned isolated data points into a meaningful semantic statement. We do the same thing to say CleanCode is written by RobertMartin and Sarah manages CentralLibrary. Just like that, our knowledge graph is alive and completely connected. Finally, part five. Testing with the reasoner. It's time to call in Hermit and Pellet. Before we run our final inspection, let's give the reasoner a little test. We can actually define logical conditions, called class restrictions. Let's say we create a brand new class called borrowing member. We tell the system that a borrowing member is simply any member who borrows at least one book. Notice, we're just setting the rule here. We haven't manually gone in and labeled anyone as a borrowing member yet. So watch what happens next. When we fire up the Hermeter or Pellet Reasoner, which are built right into the software, by the way, it looks at this one single rule we just made. It scans through our individuals, sees that Alice is a member, and notices that Alice borrows a book. And then the reasoner automatically infers that Alice fits the description. Without us typing a single extra thing, it just tags her as a borrowing member. This is the absolute game changer with ontologies. They don't just store facts, they actually generate entirely new knowledge using logic. It also acts as an amazing safety net. The reasoner doesn't just infer things, it actively hunts down logical contradictions. If we tell the system that book and person are disjoint classes, meaning they can absolutely never overlap, the reasoner enforces it. If someone accidentally clicks a wrong button and classifies the book CleanCode as both a book and a person, the reasoner immediately steps in and flags the whole ontology as inconsistent. It literally stops bad data in its tracks. Speaking of bad data, the reasoner is great at saving you from classic beginner mistakes. For example, a super common error is using a data property to just type out an author's name as a plain text string. The much better move is using an object property, like written by, to connect to a dedicated author individual. Why? Well, because an individual can hold its own web of rich data, while a plain text string is basically just a dead end. To wrap the whole thing up and put some polish on our project, we add human-readable annotations, like labels and comments. This is absolutely crucial when you have multiple people working on the same ontology because it translates all those technical names into plain English. After that, we just go to File, Save As, and pick a standard semantic web format like RDF/XML or Turtle to actually save our work. And there you go. You have officially built a functioning ontology. But I really want you to think about this. We just modeled a tiny imaginary library. By mastering these exact same fundamentals, classes, properties, individuals, and reasoning, you are fully equipped to build massive intelligent systems. The entire semantic web runs on this stuff. So if this is what a simple library can do, what kinds of massive insights could your own knowledge graph uncover in fields like global healthcare, banking, or logistics? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.